They smirked at its stubby silhouette and thin wings. The Japanese thought the F4F Wildcat was a clumsy American stopgap. What they didn't expect was that this clunker would force a rethink of aerial combat in the Pacific. Stay with me. I'll tell you the absurd truth Japan came to fear about the Wildcat, and it isn't what most people imagine. It was never just the airplane. It was what the Wildcat enabled: tactics, survivability, sustainment, and a stubborn doctrine that turned weakness into strength. Start with the machine everyone underestimates. The Wildcat was rugged. It wasn't fast or ultra-maneuverable like the Zero, but it was built to take hits and keep flying. Self-sealing fuel tanks, armor protection for pilot and engine, and a strong airframe meant Wildcats frequently returned home riddled with holes. That resilience did more than save pilots. It altered enemy psychology. Japanese pilots expected fighters to go up in flames after a few hits. When Wildcats came back, shot to pieces and flew again the next day, it changed how engagements were fought and how risks were calculated. Next truth: weapons and energy mattered more than turning prowess. The Wildcat's concentrated nose armament and stable firing platform let American pilots deliver lethal bursts. Coupled with tactics that exploited speed, dive capability, and coordinated teamwork, Wildcats could punch hard and then get out before a turning duel drained their energy. The famous answer to the Zero's superior turning was not to try to outturn it, but to avoid that fight. That shift in mindset was radical. Use boom and zoom, use altitude, use mutual support, and the Wildcat was the right tool for that doctrine. That doctrine had a name and a brain behind it: John Thach's Thach Weave. It was simple, brutal, and effective. Two Wildcats would weave together. If a Zero tried to turn on one, the partner would be there to counterattack. This was not clever ornamentation. It was survival engineering translated into aerial choreography. Thach's tactic amplified the Wildcat's strengths and exposed the Zero's vulnerability when it became isolated or overcommitted. After a few hard lessons in combat, Japanese pilots stopped assuming they could get any Wildcat they wanted. They began respecting the fact that American fighters fought as teams. Operational context makes the fear make sense. On Guadalcanal and in the Solomon Islands, the Wildcat formed the backbone of the Cactus air defense. Operated from primitive strips and worn carriers, these planes functioned within a system: radar, early warning, fighter direction, and a logistics chain that could repair and refly damaged airframes. Wildcats were not fragile showpieces. They were tools that could be patched, maintained, and rearmed under hardship. In many battles, Japan's fighters were facing not a single aircraft, but an industrial and tactical ecosystem that kept Wildcats coming back into the fight. There's a logistical truth most romantic accounts skip. Sustainment beats a spectacular kill once sorties pile up. A Zero that burned easily after being hit removed one pilot and one plane. A Wildcat that came back with holes was fixed overnight and flew again the next day, multiplied force. That attrition dynamic is harsh but decisive. Japan's early victories relied on pilot quality and surprise. Long campaigns favored the side that could keep aircraft in the air, patched and crewed. Wildcat resilience was an unglamorous but strategic advantage. Human factors amplified everything. American carrier and marine crews learned to repair Wildcats fast and improvise in field conditions. Pilots learned to fly to the aircraft's strengths: energy fighting, team tactics, conservative throttle handling to preserve engines. When aces adapted, they were lethal. When inexperienced pilots followed a doctrine that emphasized mutual support, losses fell. Japan could dread the Wildcat because it solved a nasty equation: less elegant plane, plus better systems, plus smarter tactics, equals more surviving fighters over time. Here's a concrete technical edge that mattered: the Wildcat's armament and later design changes. Early US Navy Wildcats carried 4.50 caliber Browning machine guns with ample ammunition, giving sustained firepower in a stable firing platform. Later variants introduced 6 guns and a folding wing system to increase carrier capacity, a trade-off that cost some firing time per gun but allowed more fighters aboard. That evolution shows a practical truth. Designers balanced firepower, carrier operations, and logistic realities rather than chasing raw agility. Don't forget the Royal Navy's role. The British Fleet Air Arms Martlets, their Wildcat variant, proved the type's value in Atlantic and Mediterranean conditions, often operating from escort carriers and merchant conversion carriers. The Royal Navy's experience reinforced what US forces learned. The Wildcat's survivability and simple ruggedness made it ideal for sustained operations in harsh conditions where runway space, parts and time were limited. And Thach's tactic produced measurable results in combat, not just theory. In multiple early engagements, squadrons employing the Weave bounced Japanese formations and turned apparent disadvantages into favourable exchanges. Reports from carrier actions describe sequences where Wildcats, properly led and disciplined, forced pursuing Zeros into the kill zone of another Wildcat, exact scenarios the Thach Weave was built to create. Those outcomes hardened the perception in Tokyo. Wildcats no longer behaved like easy targets. Finally, the system-level innovations around the Wildcat, radar-directed fighter control, forward repair depots, and coordinated air-sea integration turned individual aircraft into force multipliers. The Cactus Air Force at Guadalcanal used Wildcat patrols integrated with radar picket information and timely fighter direction to blunt waves of Japanese attacks. That organizational edge converted the Wildcat's durability into strategic staying power, long before more agile fighters became available in numbers. Finally, the absurd truth in one clean line. Japan didn't fear the Wildcat because it was the best fighter in a dogfight. They feared it because the Wildcat refused to die in the ways they expected, because it arrived inside a system that turned damage into advantage, and because American tactics turned supposed inferiority into operational superiority. The Wildcat taught a brutal lesson. You don't need to be the fastest or the tightest turning machine to win. You need the right combination of design choices, tactics, and logistics. So what should you remember? First, aircraft are never just hardware, they're part of doctrine and supply. Second, small design choices, armor, tank protection, repairability, scale into huge strategic effects. Third, fear in war is rarely born of raw specs. It grows from the enemy's ability to sustain, adapt, and fight smarter. The F4F Wildcat looks unimpressive until you measure its results. That's the absurd truth Japan learned the hard way.